Hello, good afternoon. My name is Helena Hirong and this is for Azusa Pacific University College. Today is August 4th, 2018. The sign-in for today is we're going to label the axial and appendicular skeleton. So we're going to go back to my model, which I named Dearly Shelley. It helps me to remember some of the bones if I have an association of a person to her. So here we go. Okay. So we're going to start with the skull. On the skull we have the frontal view, which we're going to review. We have, sorry if I mess up some of the bones, we have the orbital, which are pertaining to the eye socket. We have the lacrimal, which is this part right here, and the little hole, that's the lacrimal duct. We have the ethmoid, which is this bone right here. Try to mark it so you guys can see it. And then we have the ethmoid bone, which is the bone where the nasal tip is, which is right over here. The maxilla, which is the top of the mandible right here. And then we have our mandible, which is mobile, that Shelley demonstrates here. And then we have the other parts of the skull, which are the frontal bone, which pertains to this part right here. And then we also have the zygomatic bone, which is what they also call the zygomatic arches. So it kind of helps me to know that they're arches, which is right here. They have two that are located right here, which is this bone right here. That's the zygomatic bone. We also have, I mentioned that earlier, but I don't know if I did, the mandible, which is mobile part of the bone of the jaw that allows us to chew, the lower part of the jaw. We have, we're going to move on to the lateral side of the skull, which shows different parts of the sutures, which are right here. So we have the temporal, parietal, and then we also have the back of the skull, which shows different arches. And we have, I'm going to move on to the spine, and the spine, which pertains to the upper part of it, which is this is the atlas. So when you look at it and you actually take apart the spine, you can call it the atlas because it's the top part of our spine that connects right here to the base of the skull. And then we have our cervical spine, which is C1 to C7. So it should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then from there occurs the thoracic spine, which is the upper back of the spine, the thoracic spine, which is all these bones included here. And then we have our lower part of the spine, which is the lumbar spine, which is the lower part of here. We have our coccyx and our sacrum. So our sacrum is this part right here, and our coccyx is what we call the tailbone, just this part right here. And then we move on to the part of the bones of the hands and the limbs. So we have our humerus, which is these two bones right here. We have the elbow, which pertains to the, oh, Shelley's falling apart, radius and I'm sorry, this is the radius and this is the ulna. So how I remember the radius is that it connects to the radial pulse, which is this part right here. The radius connects to the radia, so the radium. So it's radius and ulna, and radius and ulna. And then we have our bones of our hands, the phalanges, the carpals, metacarpals, and then on here in the lower part we have our bones of our lower limbs, which are, let's see, so let me turn out Shelley. So we call this the medial epicondyle, which is the knee bone that we have right here, the little part that we have here. Our longest bone of our body, which is the femur, that articulates to our hip bone, and we have the pubis here, and then we have the ilium and the ischium. And then we have the lower part of the bone of the tibia and the fibia. And the tibia, remember, is the biggest bone. I'm sorry, the tibia is the biggest bone and the fibia is a little smaller bone that articulates to our shins. We're going to move on to our lower part of our feet, which also includes the phalanges, but it's a little more complex to stabilize ourselves. So we have in the lower part of our bones, we have different parts, which I will try to describe because it's so small. Tarsals, metatarsals, and then phalanges, which is these bones that are here. And then in the back right here, we have the talus, which is the back of the heel, or what they call the heel spur. And then we also have our rib cage, which have true bones and false bones. So our rib cage has definition of true bones. Our true bones are bones that articulate to the clavicle or the breastbone. I'm sorry, the sternum, which are right here. So these are considered true ribs, and then the false ribs are the ones that don't, basically are kind of floating around. And then we have definitions of our different body parts. So I hope this helps kind of bring some perspective of how to remember some of the bones of our body. Thank you and have a great rest of your night.